Well, hey y'all, and welcome to the Hillbilly Chicken Ranch. I'm Susan, your hostess. We are going over a 2-day period with this recipe. The first day, I sliced all my zucchini, my onion, and I've got it in a brine. And I'm going to have to drain the brine off on day 2 and do the pickling process. But here is the conundrum that I came across when I was researching this recipe. There are thousands of variations to a sliced squash relish or a squash relish recipe. Some are no salt, some have, no sugar, some are sugar. And sometimes all the directions aren't there. So, you have to kind of figure this out. So I settled on one that was from 365. Let's see, Amish, where is it? Oh. It's from Amish365day.com. And the recipe was good until I got to the cooking time. And I thought, well, this is a long process to cook this squash relish when you want that relish to kind of have a little chew to it or a little bite to it. And so I went into my ball canning book and I discovered that they have a 1/4-inch headspace and it should have been a 1/2-inch headspace. And they said to a hot water bath for 15 minutes on top of a 30-minute cook on low heat. So I'm thinking, well, that's an awful long time to be doing this. So I have come up with my own recipe. I know you're not supposed to come up with your own recipe, but in a case like this, when every direction I read was different, I wanted to be sure on the cooking time and the headspace. So I knew everything else was okay. So the recipe itself for the ingredients is from Amish365.com, but the cooking instructions are from the Ball Book of Canning, and it was for the zucchini pickles. So I figured it was safer to go with Ball than to go with whatever they all chose to pick out. So I'm going to be using a half-inch ample headspace per the Ball Book of Canning. To bring your pickling juice to a boil, add the squash, return to a boil, simmer for 5 minutes. Then you let it stand for 1 hour. Your water bath can for 10 minutes, pints and half pints only. So I have got it to the stage in the video. You're going to see me canning. It has set for 1 hour. I'm going to have to do some reworking on all of this. Also, the recipe for one recipe, it calls for 10 cups of sliced squash, sliced thin, 4 cups of chopped onion, 5 tablespoons of canning salt. That's your brine. And you will brine this for 2 hours to overnight, and then you're going to rinse the brine. You're going to drain and rinse the brine. The pickling mixture is 1 tablespoon of turmeric, 1/2 teaspoon of celery seed, 4.5 cups of sugar, 2.5 cups of vinegar, 1 tablespoon of dry mustard, 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, which I omit because I'm making sliced pickle relish. I am not making relish, and I probably wouldn't use cornstarch anyway. 2 large bell peppers, red and green, chopped. Now, I did it 5 times the recipe, so here we go. 48 to 50 cups of squash, 20 cups of chopped onion, 25 tablespoons of salt, and it is your canning salt. And I think that's a lot of salt, personally. 5 tablespoons of turmeric, 22 cups of sugar. I did drop it down by 1/2 cup. 10 bell peppers, which I used 8 cups of bell peppers, 5 tablespoons of dry mustard. Let's get into the recipe. All right, I've got this batch of squash washed. I've got to move all my canning lids that I've got over here drying. I've got my mandolin out ready to use. So I'm taking the ends off, and I'm going to start with a small end, and then I've got my little thing here that I can attach the squash to finish it out. And I've set this at the lowest setting I have. It doesn't take long. You want to keep your fingers back though, because that little knife on there is sharp. And then this last slice is a little thick, so I always kind of slice it in half with a knife. And so I'm getting these uniform, and it works out really well. So let me get working on this, and then we'll come back when I have my bowl filled. We'll measure out how many cups of squash I actually have. All right, we have 3 gallons of sliced yellow squash, and each gallon holds 16 cups. All right, I've done some multiplying out. I had approximately 48 cups of sliced squash, so I'm going with timesing my recipe times 5. So I will need 48 cups of squash, 20 cups of chopped onions, 25 tablespoons of salt. I've divided this out into 5 containers just to make it easier for me to handle. I've got my canning salt over here, and we're just going to go ahead and measure out this. This is the brine. It makes its own brine, and you want to kind of evenly distribute your salt. So I'm going to do this to each one of these. Y'all, I'm going to go in here with my hands and kind of start releasing those juices and get that salt incorporated all over each one of these buckets. Then I'm going to cover them, and I've decided I'm going to let these sit overnight. That onion did get cut up. Not very good anyway. Anyway, I'm going to get the salt incorporated on these. I'm going to cover them and allow the salt to do its thing. So I'm just massaging that salt in just a little bit, and I've got that turned. So I'm going to do this with each one of these. My sink's clean, y'all. I just thought this would be the easiest way for me to do this. And I'm going to wait until tomorrow. I want to make sure I have enough sugar and vinegar on hand to do such a large batch. I thought I had enough here. I went into my pantry and I don't have enough sugar, and so we're going to get some more sugar and vinegar, and I'll get this canned up tomorrow. So this just takes a few minutes of turning it and getting that salt brine over all the vegetables. Thankfully, we don't have to add the bell peppers to this. So I pretty much cleaned out my pantry of onions for this year. We'll be having to buy some store onions because I'm out of onions now. And the Amish won't have any until spring. My hands, y'all. Ugh. Okay, I've got that salt all incorporated. I'm going to wash my hands and we'll be back tomorrow. It's day 2 and we are back. We're going to be working on this Amish sliced squash relish, y'all. Okay, I have my squash here and y'all can look. There's a lot of liquid in there that's come off because of that salt. So we are going to put this into our colander and strain all that liquid off, then rinse it to get some of that salt off of our food because we don't want to eat all that salt. Put it back into my bucket. I've got 4 more buckets to do and we'll be right back. Okay, we're going to make our pickling brine. This is an 8-pound bag of sugar. There's 2 cups of sugar per pound. This is a pure cane sugar. It's all natural. So we're going to go ahead and put this in here and count it as 16 cups of sugar. Then we're going to move on and we're going to get the rest of the sugar in here. I've got 16 cups in here. I'm adding 4 more. That makes 20. It sounds like a lot of sugar, y'all. And 2 more makes 22, and I'm going to leave it at 4. Eight. And I'm dipping into this expensive vinegar that I purchased from Walmart. It was $3.75 a gallon, y'all. I always check and make sure that it says that it is 5% vinegar. They're writing it very small on the label, so you need to check and make sure that you're getting 5%. And there we go. So we've got our sugar and our vinegar in here. I am going to give this a good stir. Try to get that sugar broke up a little bit and start dissolving it. It calls for 10 bell peppers. So I have some chopped bell peppers that I had in my freezer, so I'm going to use this. This is about a half a gallon of bell peppers, about 8 cups, somewhere in there. So I've got that in my stock pot. Now I'm going to get my spices together and we'll get this onto the stove. I'm going to go ahead and get this up to a boil. And then I'll add in my squash. I'm going to actually follow some of the directions from another recipe. Just because I don't want to cook my squash that long. I don't want cooked squash in my jars. I want it to have a little bit of a bite to it. And I do have my jars sterilizing back here. Okay, I need 5 tablespoons of turmeric and 5 tablespoons of dry mustard. I'm going to add a little bit more because that first tablespoon just wasn't quite full. Get these out of my way. And I need 5 teaspoons of celery seed. Two, 3, 4, 5. We have 9 pints in this canner. And 4 more pints in that canner. And I have the canner full of jars. I always try to make sure I have a full canner. And another 9 pints that have sealed. So 18, 22 pints. That's pretty good for this session. Home canning 24, y'all. Yum yum, eat it up. All organic squash, bell peppers, onion. It is going to be delicious on our pantry shelf. Thank you for watching, and may you be fully blessed.